If you don't know, Jeff Tunn is the founder of the Indy CIO, which stands for Chief Information Officers Network here in Indiana, because he has an illustrious background in chief information officing. He also is an author of several books, the most recent one called Amplify Your Job Search. And he's going to be joining us today to talk to us a little bit more about that, specifically for entry-level positions and how we can position ourselves getting into the careers that we know and love. All right, take it away, Jeff.
Excellent. Well, in just a moment, let me share my screen and I'll bring up my deck. And hopefully you're seeing the wonderful telescope.
We are. It's a beautiful
Yes.
telescope.
Awesome. Thank you for allowing me to come and speak with you today. I really feel passionately about the topic that we're going to cover today, which are job search strategies. And so we're going to talk through some of those, but I'd like to keep this open as much as possible. So if you have questions, don't hesitate to unmute yourself and break in to ask a question as we're going through this. And then I also left time at the end for questions as well, because everybody's circumstances is different. We need to be open to those types of questions. So don't hesitate to ask anything. So one of the things that has happened in 2020 is a lot of people are out of work. And so we're going to talk a little bit about those statistics here in a minute. But one of the things that has happened recently was LinkedIn conducted a survey of several thousand people that were searching for a job. It might have been their first job. It might have been in transition because they lost their job due to COVID. But what they found was that 84% of the respondents felt like there was a stigma associated with being unemployed. Yet 96% of the hiring managers said that because of 2020 and the horrible job market that it has been, that they would give people a hall pass during this time. So there's this disconnect between people that are searching, feeling themselves having this stigma, and hiring managers that said they're going to overlook any gaps in work history. The other thing that was interesting in that survey is that people felt so bad about being between jobs, not being able to find their first job or not being able to transition to their next one. 46% of the people admitted that they had fibbed about being out of work. 51% said that they had avoided social situations because they were embarrassed, uneasy, or ashamed of being out of work. I hope that as we talk today, you're going to see that while you can't discount someone's feelings, you're going to see that there are strategies available to find your first job or find your next job. So today's job landscape is daunting. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it for those of you who might be entering the workforce soon. Unemployment is sitting around 10%. There's estimates of 16 million Americans out of work, and I've seen that number as high as 45 million. Add to that 4 million new college graduates that will be entering the workforce in 2020, and millions of people who have lost their job since February of 2020. It is a daunting job environment. You need help, but you are not alone. You have the staff at Ivy Tech to help, you have your peers to help, and you need a plan. And today we're going to talk about some of the strategies that will go into your plan, your strategy for finding your next job or your first job as you come out of school. Amplify Your Job Search is not the book that I started out 2020 to write. I'd actually started to write a different book. But in February and March, I started to see what was happening with the pandemic, the stay-at-home orders, the economic shutdown, and what was going to be happening to people's jobs. And so I literally put that book on the digital shelf and I started writing Amplify Your Job Search. If you have the opportunity to read this book, you will find that in it, I talk about two strategies or two techniques to finding a job. There is a shotgun approach, and in that approach, you're sending out resume after resume after resume, maybe dozens, maybe hundreds. I've heard stories of people sending out 400 resumes before they landed a job. And you may be applying for roles that fit your education. You may be applying for roles that don't fit just so you can get that job. The other type of job search is called, I call it a laser focused job search. And that is where you're targeting specific jobs in specific locations and maybe even at specific companies. I believe in this job market that we've just talked about how daunting it is, that using a laser focused strategy is the right choice for finding a job in today's market. So we're going to talk the rest of our time today about that laser focused approach. In the book, I talk about 7 different tools that I encourage you to use in finding your dream job or a job. And I also talk in the book about what is a dream job versus what is not a dream job. Basically, a dream job does not mean it's your last job. A dream job means that that job aligns with your strengths, your values, your passions, and your purpose. And if you can find that job, it will be far more rewarding than one you find that doesn't align with those things. So in the book, I talk through these 7 different tools, and I walk the reader through how to use these tools to find their dream job. Now, we're not going to go through all 7 tools today, but we are going to focus on 4 that I believe are key to success in any job search. We're going to talk about your personal brand, what that is and how it applies to your job search. We're going to talk about your professional network, how to build it and how to leverage it in your job search. And then we're going to talk about something that might not always get talked about in a job search, and that's your target market. How do you identify the companies that have the jobs that you want, and how do you locate them, get interviews with them, and ultimately get an offer to start at that company? And we're going to talk about that. And then the foundation underneath it all is journaling. And I don't know how many in the audience today have kept a journal, but we're going to talk a lot about journaling, especially here at the outset, because I believe it is key to a job search or a job transition. So journaling brings with it many different benefits. Some of those benefits are keeping a journal can help you achieve your goals. You have a goal today of finding your first job coming out of school, or finding your next job if you're already employed and now you're getting a degree to change your career. Keeping a journal can help you achieve that. It helps hold yourself accountable as you're writing in your journal. A journal can help with healing. This has been a traumatic year for all of us. Regardless of whether you're in school, in employment, or in between jobs, this has been a traumatic year. And you probably need to process that healing of going through and writing down your thoughts. The last thing you want to do going into a job interview is have those negative feelings come through in a job interview. And journaling can help you process that. Journaling can also help with your self-confidence. If you're entering the job market for the very first time, you may not have the confidence in your own abilities because you haven't had the opportunity to prove those abilities even to yourself. But by journaling, you can build that self-confidence. If you've been impacted by the economic downturn and have lost your position, your self-confidence may have taken a hit because of that. Again, journaling can help build that self-confidence or rebuild that self-confidence, as the case may be. Journaling can help you with the process of finding your job. It can help you process what has happened in the past. It can help you process what is going on around you at the moment, and it will help you process what's coming at you down the road. Journaling gives you that ability to think and reflect on the world around you, especially as it relates to your job search. And it can help keep you organized. As you're searching for a job, you're going to be gathering a lot of information on roles, positions, job descriptions, companies, networking contacts. A journal gives you a great place to organize that and keep track of it all. Now, you may be thinking that, gosh, I'm not in journalism school. I never really thought about writing a journal. I don't write very well, or I worry about punctuation and grammar and all those things. And I will tell you that your transition journal is for your eyes only. It's not something that you have to worry about punctuation or grammar or even spelling. Two of my heroes are Meriwether Lewis and William Clark, the explorers, Lewis and Clark. When they traveled across our continent and back over 200 years ago, they kept journals. They wrote over 1 million words over that 3-year period. And they spelled mosquito 26 different ways. So spelling, grammar, punctuation does not matter. Now, there are keys to making a habit of journaling. So I want to talk about the 4 keys to making it a habit. And this coincidentally works for making many things a habit. If you're trying to establish a new habit, these keys could work in multiple ways. So one is frequency. I'm going to suggest that as you embark on your job search, you journal on a daily basis. That rhythm will help you make it a habit much quicker than if, say, you journaled once a week or once a month, because it's going to take repetition for the habit to start to form. Another key in forming the habit of journaling is when to journal. I would suggest carving out the same time every day to write in your journal. For me, I'm an early bird. I'm up in the morning by 5 or 5:15, and by 5:45, I'm sitting at my desk and writing. The house is quiet. The rest of the family is not awake yet, so it gives me a chance to think and write. You may not be an early bird. You may be a night owl. So carve out some time in the evening where you can sit quietly and write in your journal. Or it might be on your lunch hour in between classes. It doesn't matter when, it just matters that you're consistent in your when. Because again, that will help your brain focus on what it is that you're doing. The third component is place. Where you journal is important. Try to go to the same place every day to write in your journal. So you're writing every day for frequency, You're writing at the same time, pretty much every day for when, and now you're at the same location every day. Once again, that's going to encourage your brain to say, hey, it's time to journal. Now, the other thing that I'm going to encourage you to do is to physically write a journal. Use handwriting to write in your journal. You could do a digital journal and type it in. You could do a video journal and record yourself with your smartphone. But studies have shown that the process of handwriting something focuses your brain on what's important. It's able to filter out all the background noise and focus in on what you're doing. So if you're doing the right frequency, the right location, the right place, and your handwriting, you are going to be ready to journal. The fourth key is what to journal. Writer's block is real. I can tell you as a writer, writer's block is real. But again, keep in mind that this journal is for you. It is for your eyes only. And so what you journal is not nearly as important as the other three: when, where, and how often. When you're thinking about what to journal, think about another famous journaler in our American history, Theodore Roosevelt. Theodore Roosevelt wrote journals from the time he was a very young man, probably even preteen, based on what we've been able to learn about Theodore Roosevelt. One day, on a very tragic day in his life, his journal entry was very simple. It was a large X at the top of the page with the words, "The light has gone out of my life." No other words were necessary. He knew what that meant. He didn't need a long explanation as to all the things that had happened on that day. That was enough. Now, again, if you have the opportunity to use my book, there are prompts in there as you're going through your job search. And at the end of each chapter, I'll ask you questions or give you things to think about and write about in your journal. So the what becomes a little bit easier. But those are the 4 keys to making journaling a habit. And as you're in a job search, one of the things that I will encourage you to do is to go back and read your previous entries. That's one of the gifts that a journal brings, is that when you go back and reread something, it gives you different lessons because you've changed. And so you're looking at the world differently. And as you read what you wrote a month ago, a week ago, or a year ago, you're going to derive different lessons from that. It's also going to help keep you on track in your job search. And it's also going to help build your self-confidence as you see what you have achieved in your job search. Now I want to shift to brand. Would love to know who here has a brand. Anybody want to unmute and say, yes, I have a brand? Jessica's raising her hand.
I have a brand.
Anybody else with a brand?
Most of my counterparts do. I know Drew Carey has a brand.
Well, here's the secret about a brand. Everybody has one. The question isn't, do you have a brand? The question is, have you cultivated that brand? Or is it just ad hoc? What impression do you give someone when they look at your LinkedIn profile? What impression do you give someone when they look at your Facebook page? What impression do you give when they're looking at your Instagram or whatever social media platform you're on? That's your brand. And as you're searching for a job, you need to be intentional about your brand, because as you're submitting your resume, that carries your brand. As you're in interviews with potential employers, that carries your brand. And you want to make sure that your brand is consistent. So what is a personal brand? A personal brand is really made up of four components. It's your strengths, it's your values, it's your passions, and your purpose. There's a great tool to identify your strengths. If you haven't taken the Clifton Strength Finders, I would suggest that you do that. Ivy Tech may have a strength tool that they encourage you to take. I would use that and identify your strengths. On the personal brand amplifier, I talked about identifying your top 5 strengths. And so you would write them on the personal brand amplifier. Values are the things that are important to you. That might be honesty, respect, grace, family. What are the things that you value? And there's great tools out there to identify your values. And I recommend that you use one of those tools and go through the exercise of identifying what are the top 5 values that you find important. Passions become a little bit harder to uncover, but basically your passion is what gets you really excited? What gets you passionate about something? What's your jam? That's your passion. So for me, I've already mentioned my 2 heroes, Lewis and Clark. Talking about Lewis and Clark, reading about Lewis and Clark, that's one of my passions. Another passion I have is genealogy. I love studying family history. Sometimes you have to dig beneath the surface a little bit, because when I do that with Lewis and Clark and genealogy, what I find is my passion really is about stories. I love stories about what people were thinking, feeling, and doing. I love telling stories. So storytelling is one of my passions. If I were to find a job that did not include storytelling, I would not be feeding one of my passions. That has to be a key component of the type of job that I pursue. Purpose can be a little bit even more difficult to identify. What's your purpose? And we're not looking for the grand, what is the meaning of life type purpose. We're talking about what gets you up in the morning. Why do you do what you do? Why are you looking for a job in technology, or why are you looking for a job in nursing? What's your purpose behind doing that? For me, I would define my purpose today as changing the face of information technology, because I believe the leadership skills that got us here are not the leadership skills that our businesses are demanding today, nor requiring of us in the future. That's probably not the purpose I would have used to describe myself a year ago, 2 years ago, even 3 years ago. So your purpose can evolve, but it's important that you identify what is your driver, what is your purpose. So all of this together becomes your personal brand amplifier. And when you're in the job market, when you're looking for that first job out of school or the next job, it's important that the company that you work for, the person that you work for, and the job that you are doing lines up with as much of this as possible. It's a very, very, very difficult situation to be in if you find yourself working for a company whose values do not align with your own. It causes internal conflict. And if you can identify that before you get into that situation, all the better. But that's the personal brand amplifier, and you use it to identify the jobs that are important to you. The next thing I want to talk about is your network. And I am sure you have heard this from your instructors time and time again. Your professional network is one of the most important things that you will build throughout your career. It can help you in your job search, which we're going to talk about here today, but it can also help you long-term. Building a robust network will be the most important thing that you spend time doing, because it will pay you back 10,000-fold. Now, why is it important to a job search? Studies have shown that 87% of job placements have attribution to networking. In other words, when someone gets hired, somewhere in that life cycle of them interviewing, and applying for and interviewing and achieving that job, their professional network had something to do with it. Whether it was a warm introduction or a letter of reference, or sending a note to human resources that says, hey, you should interview Jeff because he's really good. Whatever that is, 87% of job placements have an attribution to networking. Here's the secret that the job market doesn't always tell you. 80% of jobs are never posted publicly. It's considered the hidden job market. 80% of jobs are never posted. So 87% of job placements have an attribution to networking, and 80% of jobs are never posted. Yet in that survey that I mentioned at the outset from LinkedIn, only 42% of the people that are searching for a job have told their existing network that they're looking for a job. And only 39% have asked someone in their network for an introduction to someone else. And only 35% have sought new connections on their own. There are a lot of people leaving a lot on the table and not getting the value out of their network because they're not leveraging it in their job search. Only 50% have posted on social media that they're looking for a job. You've probably all seen on LinkedIn the hashtag open to work. While it seems like there's a lot of people with that hashtag, again, only 50% have posted on social media that they're looking for work. So one of the first things that you can do to help your job search is to tell your network. Tell them you're looking for a position. Post on social media that you're looking. Now let's talk about your network in general. If you happen to have a piece of paper and want to follow along with this exercise, I'm going to walk you through filling out this network amplifier in brief today. On your piece of paper, draw a circle and write your name in it. That's you. Once you have that, draw 3 lines off the right side of that circle. Next to one of those lines, think about 2020. Think about the events and conferences that you may have attended. These might be school conferences. These might be job fairs that you've attended. Could be a variety of different things. Think about that and just write the number of events and conferences that you've attended. Next to the second line, think about networking groups that you may belong to. These are groups that get together for the purpose of talking to each other. That might be a job seekers network, of which Indianapolis has some fantastic ones. There are several across the state that are awesome. Job seeker networks can be very, very valuable. If you're in a profession already, you may belong to a professional network. If you're entering a new profession, I would encourage you to seek out a network related to that profession. So next to that second line, you're going to write the number of networking groups you belong to. The third line is community groups. This is everything from your church to it might be a model train club, or it might be a gaming club that you belong to. It's a group of people that get together for a common interest. So think about the groups that you belong to and write the number next to that third line. Next, I'm going to have you draw a line out of the left side of the circle with your name on it. And at the end of that line, draw a circle and just write one-on-one. These are the individual relationships that you have. So out of that one-on-one circle, draw a line and write the number of family members that you have. These are not the people that are in your household per se. This is your extended family, aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, grandparents, whatever that is, your family. You could think about Thanksgiving and how many people show up at Thanksgiving as an example. Next, draw a line and write the number of friends that you have. And this is just a ballpark number. I'm not asking for specific names and addresses or anything like that. Just how many friends do you think you have? Then we're going to talk about social media, and I want you to draw a line for each social media platform that you're active on. So for LinkedIn, I want you to write the number of connections you have on LinkedIn. How many friends do you have on Facebook? How many followers on Instagram? Whatever platforms you're on, have a line for that and the number of connections that you have. Every single one of these numbers is a source for your next job or your first job. Someone in that group knows of a job or knows someone that knows a job. That's the power of the network. Now we're going to take it a little bit deeper. There's a great book that I recommend that you read called Fire Starters. It's by an Indianapolis author, Jason Barnaby. And in that, he describes the concept of your tribe. These are your close confidants, your close friends and family. And he describes 7 roles that everyone needs in that group. So thinking about your network that you just drew, who in that group is a catalyst? A catalyst is someone who kicks you in the butt when you need your butt kicked, to get up off the couch and get something done. They're the ones that push you. That's the catalyst. Connector. You know someone that seems to know everyone. They're probably a connector. I myself am a connector in a lot of people's tribes. I love making introductions. If I can introduce 2 people that don't know each other, my day is happy because I like to see what happens 6 months later, a year later, 2 years later, because of that introduction. The expert in your tribe is somebody that's been there and done that. So it might be a recent college graduate that has successfully landed their first job. It might be a seasoned veteran who has recently navigated a job transition. It might be a career coach. It might be career services at Ivy Tech. Someone in your network is that expert. The next person that you need is a listener. You need someone who always has an ear and sometimes a shoulder to listen to what you're going through and how you're progressing, because a job search, whether it's your first one or your 10th one, is hard. It's emotional, and you need someone to listen to you. The next person in your tribe is a dreamer. A dreamer is the person that when you say, what if, they get really excited and then they say, well, what if this and what if that and what if this and what if that? They build your dreams bigger and bigger. The devil's advocate is the one that says, well, yeah, but they kind of shoot holes in your dreams, but they serve a necessary purpose of keeping you grounded. And if you have a good devil's advocate in your tribe, your plans and dreams become better because they ask questions that perhaps you haven't thought about. And so you can adjust your plan. The last member of your tribe is something called an organizer. These are the people that make lists. And I can tell you, for me personally, that's my wife, Carmen. My wife, Carmen, makes lists of lists. And I could not survive a single day without her and her lists. You need someone in your life that can keep track of those details. So that's your tribe as you think about your network. Now I'm going to challenge you to go even a bit deeper on your network. And I'm going to suggest another Indiana author, Amy Waniger. Amy wrote a book called Network Beyond Bias. And in her book, she describes a methodology of assessing your network for diversity and then intentionally building your network for diversity. So when I first met Amy, we were sitting in a Starbucks and she literally had me drawing this on a napkin. Well, we sat in Starbucks, and I thought I was a good networker. I had a very strong network. And what I learned in a conversation with Amy was I had a lot of work to do, because when I looked around my network, they all looked like me, a bunch of old white guys. That's not a very diverse network. So if you're looking at your network and they all look like you, talk like you, and act like you need Amy's book. So let's talk through her first matrix, which she calls her CHAMP matrix, CHAMP. C is for customer. Now, if you've got a job today while you're going through school, do you know one of the customers of that business by name? Not an internal customer, but somebody that buys the goods and services of that company. That would be your customer, or the C. The H is hire. If you were in a position to hire someone, who in your network would you hire? Or if you're not in a position to hire someone, who in your network would you recommend to someone else to hire them? In other words, put your name on the line for their reputation and yours. That's your H. A is for associate. This is someone, if you're working today at a company, this is someone that's at the same level you are, not necessarily on your same team or in your same department, but someone at your same level. That's an associate. For you in school, that's probably another classmate. That's an associate. So if you're a junior, they're a junior. If you're a senior, they're a senior. If you're a sophomore, they're a sophomore. Gives you that level feeling, whether they're in the same school in Ivy Tech or not. They're an associate. M is for mentor. Everybody needs at least one mentor in their network. This is someone who you go to for counsel. They don't tell you how to do things, but typically they ask great questions. I recommend that people have 2, 3, and 4 mentors in their network, almost like a board of directors, to help you with your career, to help you with your life. P is for protege. This is someone that you're mentoring. And even if you're a young student, there's people that you can mentor. There's kids in high school that might need a mentor. There's kids in grade school that might need a mentor. There may be people older than you that need a mentor. You have life lessons and you can ask great questions. So you need someone that you mentor. I can tell you personally, I learn more from my proteges than I do from just about anything else that I do in my career. So that is your CHAMP network. Now we're going to go a little bit deeper yet. And I'm going to have you write the word ignore on a piece of paper, but with 2 G's. So it's IGGNORE. Ignore. So as you're thinking about your network, the I stands for industry. If you've started your career and you're in the healthcare industry, you want an I to be someone that's in a different industry. Might be information technology, to use those 2 examples. If you're in school at Ivy Tech, like you are, someone in a different industry might be someone at a different school. entirely. So think about someone that has different experiences than you because they're living things differently in a different industry. The first G in ignore is for generation. Think of someone in your network who is of a different generation than you are. If you're a millennial, maybe that's a baby boomer. If you're a baby boomer, maybe that's a millennial. Everybody has different life experiences because of the generation that they've been born into. Having people in your network of a different generation gives you that diversity. Next up is the second G, gender. Who in your network is of a different gender than you are? You need people in your network who are of different genders. The N is for nationality or native language. Who in your network is a different nationality than you or speaks a different language as their native language than you? Again, it broadens your diversity. It broadens your school of thought as you introduce new people to your network. The O is for sexual orientation. Who in your network has a different sexual orientation than you do? You want someone in your network that's different than you. R is for race. Who in your network is a different race than you are? Again, when I took this assessment for me, I was feeling pretty cocky about myself. And what I found was most of the people in my network were old white guys like me. I've done a lot of work in the 3 years since I met Amy to change that. The final letter in ignore is E, ethnicity. Who in your network has a different ethnicity than you do? Now, the challenge that Amy laid down for me and the challenge that I laid down for you is as you look at this network amplifier, where are the gaps? And as you're networking and asking people for introductions and seeking new introductions on your own, be intentional about filling those gaps. Reach out to people who don't look like you. Reach out to people who don't think like you. Reach out to people who don't act or talk like you, and add them to your network. As I said when we started on networking, you will never regret spending time building this network. It will be the single most powerful thing you do for your career, and I contend for your life. So spend time intentionally building this network. We're going to see in a few minutes about how that applies to your job search. I mentioned target market, and I mentioned that you are in sales. When you're looking for a job, you're the product. You are selling you. So if you've done any work in sales and marketing, or had any courses in sales and marketing, you're probably familiar with the sales funnel. Basically, the sales funnel is if you have a product or a service that you're selling, at the top of the funnel is everybody on the planet who could possibly buy your product or service. That's not realistic that you're going to sell to all those people. So you define a target market. That might be, you might define a target market as my typical buyer is between the ages of 25 and 45. That narrows your focus down for the product or service that you're selling. Then you narrow it down even further with your serviceable addressable market, your SAM, because you're not able to sell your product or service to everybody in the world. You may only be able to sell it in central Indiana or northern Indiana or southern Indiana. You may be geographically constrained. That's your serviceable addressable market. Finally, share of market, SOM, are those people that actually will buy your product or service. Now think about this in the case of a job search. At the top of the funnel are all the jobs everywhere. That's not realistic. You don't have the skills to do all the jobs everywhere. I will never, ever be an NBA basketball player. I can take that off the table pretty quick at 5'10" and 62. Not going to happen. So now I've got a set of skills that becomes my target addressable market. I have a set of skills in information technology. However, I don't want to move from central Indiana. So my serviceable addressable market becomes central Indiana that have IT jobs. Now, if I'm looking for a job, the good news is my share of market, I only need one buyer for what I'm selling because I only need one job. So your share market could be one. So how does that apply to a job search, and how do you narrow the focus? We're going to take a page from David Letterman and his top 10 list. So these top 10 lists are not near as funny as David Letterman's, but they're very important to your job search. And I'm going to encourage you to write down the top 10 things you're looking for in either your next job or your first job. And I want you to force rank them 1 through 10, 1 being the most important, 10 being the least important of your top 10. Write down the top 10 things you're looking for in your next or first boss. Force rank them 1 to 10. Write down the things you're looking for your next company. Force rank them 1 through 10. These lists help you in 2 ways in your job search. First, they become your search criteria. You're trying to find a job that matches as many of those as you can. Now, I will tell you, I've used this process myself. I used it 10 or 11 years ago when I was in a job transition, and I found a job that matched 30 out of 30. It was my dream job. It was a perfect job. You're not likely to get a 30 out of 30, but what you want to do is get as many as possible. The other thing that you'll use these lists for is your evaluation criteria. If you get a job offer, how many does it check off? How many items on your list does it meet? If it only meets a couple, do you really want that job? You've got to ask yourself that question. If you're lucky and get multiple job offers, it gives you a way to compare the job offers based on something other than salary, which is important, don't get me wrong. But if salaries are equal and benefits are equal, how do you decide which one is a better fit? This gives you a way to do that. So how do you identify those companies? There's a database that I know Marion County Public Library provides access to. And if you don't live in Marion County, you can get an inter-county library card so you can get access to Marion County. Your public library in your location may provide this as well, or Ivy Tech may provide access to it, but it's called the Mergent Intellect database, MERGENT, Intellect. It's a database of millions of companies throughout the world. And so what I encourage you to do is take that search criteria, probably mostly from the next company search criteria, and go into Mergent Intellect and try to identify those companies that meet as many of those as possible. As an example, when I was in a search, I was looking for a company that had more than 250 employees, had less than 3,000 employees, was located in 17 counties in central Indiana, and whose headquarters was located in one of those counties. Now, I had some other criteria that was involved, but for sake of example, we'll just use those 4. When I ran that search on that database, there were over 2,000 companies that met that criteria. 2,000 companies, most of which I'd never heard of before, yet I probably drove past them every day. That's a pretty large serviceable addressable market, SAM. So now you've got this list of 2,000 great companies. How do you find the one that has the job for you? You go back to your network. and you become far more intentional about your networking. You're now focused on who in your network works at that company. Who in your network knows somebody that works for one of those companies on your list? Don't know anybody that knows anybody at that company? LinkedIn provides a great tool to find out who are the employees that work there that are on LinkedIn. Reach out to them. Ask them to a virtual cup of coffee. Meet them on Zoom. Ask them about their day. Ask them about their job. You want to learn as much as you can about the companies that are in your list so that you can identify the ones that have the job or jobs that you're looking for. This is like reverse recruiting. You're looking for the company, you're looking for the job, rather than applying to a job that gets posted. Because remember, 80% of jobs never get posted publicly. This is the way you tap into that hidden market. And you can leverage your network to learn. You can leverage your network for introductions into those organizations. Now, if you're interested in learning more about this, my book is available on Amazon. This is the commercial interruption. Or you can buy it directly from me at shop.jeffreystun.com. And I'm going to be doing further workshops on these subjects. So be on the lookout for those that will dive a little bit deeper and provide you with the tools. All of these tools that we talked about are in the book. And also available for download. When you buy the book, you can download extra copies of these worksheets. So I know we're running up on the hour, but I think we've got a couple minutes for questions, right, Jessica? So does anybody have, and here's my contact information. As I mentioned, I am a connector. So please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. I'm JTON Indy on every one of those platforms.
That's a good way to brand yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do have a question. You had made reference when we were talking about the network amplifier about those professional groups, and you said there were several in the central Indiana and area. Can you give us a couple?
So job seeker groups, there's a couple that are really, really good. Passport to Employment is a great group. That's free to attend. TNG, which stands for Team Networking Group, that's another one that's very, very good. That's a membership group. You pay monthly to join that group. Those are job seeker networks. For professional networks, aside from that, it would depend on the profession that you're in. My profession being information technology, there's several. There's Indy CIO network, there's IT leaders, there's Higher IT Indy for job seekers so it's kind of a blend of the two. That's a meetup that's available on meetup.com. And then there's the Society of Information Managers. All of those are great networking groups if you happen to be in information technology. If you're in a different profession, I am sure there are dozens of other networking groups that cater to those various professions.
Would you recommend like using meetup.com or Google to try to search out those?
Absolutely. Yeah, meetup.com is fantastic. There's a couple of great meetup groups in addition to the ones I mentioned. There's a group specifically targeted at AWS. Again, if you're in the IT space. But if you go to meetup.com, there's one there for product managers. If you like product and are looking at being either a product marketer, product owner, product manager, that group is great for that. So there's dozens and dozens of those groups on there.
What was the last name of Jason, the author of Firestarters?
Barnaby, B-A-R-N-A-B-Y.
Thank you. I took so many notes in my journal.
Oh, very good, very good. Teacher's pet already, Jessica.
Well, we already knew that when we first met. Does anybody else have any questions? Daryl. I don't know about everyone else, but that was probably one of the most insightful, action-oriented presentations I've ever seen on job search. So I really appreciate it. It was amazing, and I'm sure I'm going to carry it when I'm talking with students in the future. I hope that my other counterparts will as well. And the students that are on this call, I hope that you got a bunch of great resources from this. And if you look for Jeff's book on Amazon, it's not expensive at all. But if you really want it, let me know and I'll see if I can't buy you one. Okay. All right.
Excellent.
So thank you so much. And remember that this whole week we have tons of programming. Continue to visit that website. And I'll put the link in chat real quick. And then you can see what other live sessions we have going on today, tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday.
And Jessica, I know you recorded this session, but if having the PowerPoint deck would be helpful, I'm more than happy to share that with you as well.
Yeah, I would love to have that as a PDF even, just
Yeah.
as a additional supplement. Yep.
Okay, I will shoot that your way.
You're amazing. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
All right. Have a great one.
All right, thank you all very much.
Bye.
Excellent.
So thank you so much. And remember that this whole week we have tons of programming. Continue to visit that website. And I'll put the link in chat real quick. And then you can see what other live sessions we have going on today, tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday.